Well, I think we can make a start this evening. Very welcome, you're all very welcome to this meeting of the Planning Applications Committee. My name is Councillor James Husband. I'm Chairman of the committee. To my right are my colleagues, and it will be the five of us who will be making the decisions on the cases in front of us this evening. We're also joined to my left and in the chamber by officers who will be assisting us. They'll be presenting the applications and offering us advice. And this evening, the officer team is led by Wade Banks, a guy who's sitting on my immediate left. Okay. So we can get underway. I think first of all, I can ask Holly, have we any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chairman. There are no apologies of absence.
No, good. That's excellent. Are there any, colleagues, are there any declarations of interest? Are there any other declarations?
Yes.
Councillor Mackover.
Thank you. I would propose to step aside from the decision on South 57 because the application site is very close to my own flat, and on that basis it would be wrong for me to make a decision one way or the other on it.
All right.
Thank you, Chair. Item number 5859. I had conversations with the objector.
Sorry?
I had conversations with the objector, multiple emails. I'm just declaring.
For which one?
Item number 5859, which is the first one.
All right.
17 Addison Gardens, yeah. But I haven't made up my mind yet, so I'm just in.
Okay. So are you content to sit on the committee to make a decision on that?
That's correct.
If you have an open mind.
Yes, please.
Okay, well in that case I think that's understood. That's very good. Excellent. Now I think it, well the next item is we have minutes. Now colleagues, we have minutes first of all of the meeting on the 23rd of April. I think Arian, Sam and Lloyd, I think you were all present there. Can I sign those as a record of that meeting, please? Thank you. I'll sign that. And then we also have minutes of the meeting that was held on the 7th of May. And I was present at that meeting. Can I have agreement that I sign those as minutes of that meeting? Thank you. Thank you very much. I think it might help everyone if I indicated the order of business for this evening. In just a moment or two's time, we're going to start with the applications relating to property in Addison Road. We will then move on to Russell Gardens Mews, the Cromwell Hospital, Elvelston Place in Queensgate, then 186 Portobello Road, then 310 Portobello Road, then applications in Pembroke Crescent, I beg your pardon, and then finally an application in McGregor Road. So that will be our order of business this evening. Now, the cases this evening are actually in fact all going to be presented by Fiona Ray, who is senior planning officer and team leader for the North cases. So Fiona, when you're ready, please go ahead and present the application in Addison Road, which is the first one on our agenda. Fiona.
Thank you, Chairman. Just firstly, I'd like to draw members' attention to the addendum report. There are some edits on there, including a condition that hadn't pulled through. So I apologise for that error, and hopefully that will correct it. So turning to the slides, many of these images will be in your report packs, but the application site is on the eastern side of Addison Road, and the building is Grade 2 listed, and also forms part of the Holland Park Conservation Area. You'll see from our report we talk about historic extensions at the site, and you can see those in this aerial view, and even better so in the site drawing. So it's to the right-hand side of this image. You can see those historic extensions. They're not part of the original building, and that is where the basement extensions that are proposed are to be sited underneath. Here are the existing elevations. Apologies, something popping up, that is showing the extent of the demolition. So it's those extensions that are demolished with the original building retained in full. Apologies, it's just frozen, I think, after that pop-up. Whilst it catches up with me, the proposed drawings are much the same footprint, much the same massing, as you again see in the report pack, but there is an altered design. So our conservation officer has reviewed that and is satisfied that that new design better relates to that existing building. Within the basement itself, again, while the slides catch up with me, there is a swimming pool proposed, some gym and other ancillary accommodation, and the depths have been carefully checked within that and are considered to be policy compliant. The greatest depth being within the pool area, where you've got a 2.8 metre high ceiling height overall, and then an additional 1.1 metres for that pool. Officers are recommending approval for the application, and I'm just hoping that I'm going to try and go back into the room and then reshare the laptop, because it would be helpful for you to just see those section drawings.
Let's just see if we can get those up.
As soon as Holly's arrived, it's come to life. Thank you. So these are the proposed elevations. So I'll just flip back to this image where we've shown the demolition. These are the proposed elevations. So similar treatment, but a more sort of refined approach to design. This is the basement plan. Again, a full copy is in your report pack because it's difficult to see the wording here, but there's a pool and a studio, a gym, other ancillary accommodation. Here are the section drawings. This is through, there's a landing area and gym, and the deepest point is set within that pool, and the figures are included in detail in your report. So sorry for that interruption, but that does conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, we've got speakers for this case. And I think we have an objector. I think Mrs. Lau, is that right? And you live nearby in Somerset Court, is that right? So please, when you're ready, you've got up to 3 minutes to make your objection, and then what will happen is the applicant will be able to speak, and then we will, as members of the committee, will ask questions of both of you, if you see what I mean. So please, when you're ready, do go ahead. Thank you. Yeah, I think, yeah, if you Yeah, no, I think actually, Lady will.
Yes.
There we go. That you're in business. So
Thank
please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chairman. So my name is Yvonne, if it's easier rather than Hu Yi, my Chinese name. So I live with my husband and 2 young children in Somerset Square, as the Chairman has said. Our children's room face directly to the site, and hence my interest in this case. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak, and also Councillor Aretti for responding to my emails as a concerned as constituent before. Unlike the applicant, this is my first application dealing, so please bear with me. I'm a new mother to my second baby, who's under 1, and I have been rather stressed and concerned about this when I found out about the plans right before Christmas, and together with at least 2 neighbours, we submitted objections to their first application, which I understood that it had been withdrawn. My neighbours do still object to the demolition. However, they didn't know that their first application wouldn't be counted towards this application, and hence they're not able to speak here today. In terms of my objection, first of all, I'd just like to clarify as good neighbour, I do not object to the building of the basement, but it's the approach of it. The main reason for the objection is that it's proposing a demolition, which is, I understand, is on a relatively young building, and I find this unnecessary because when they can build a basement under the current facade and retaining the existing building, which I understand most people do that, when they build a basement. It's not friendly to the environment or future generations, and so, which is so important to everyone these days. It just does not seem to me that it passes the media test or, the council's green plan. And the applicant, as far as I can see, have not, considered the sustainability side of things. The planning report actually says that because of its scale, it's not reasonable to request for a sustainability statement. So I'd also like to understand when it's reasonable to request for one, because if it's not for a development, for a big mansion house over £10 million, then what is? It just doesn't feel right. The demolition particularly creates a lot more dust and noise than a normal basement building, with the machinery, the heavy machinery and constant drilling, which will have huge impact for my children and my neighbours, who a lot of them are babies and also school children, and also some elderly people as well, who again their house face directly onto the site. And it's disappointing to see that the report says that the demographic and the health impact are not material planning considerations, because if they're not, then what are material considerations? And I don't suppose the owner is here, which is, and they seem to do everything via the agent, which I can see on the agenda. Which is a bit disappointing, because they have sent us through the agent a letter to say they wanted to be friendly and this is their long-term, family home, but from what I can see from the data on the public domain, the owner purchases houses all around the world, and we don't see the lights or activities across our garden, which means that the property is empty and they're not, here. It just feels like another investment property, and because they are not around, they choose to demolish because it makes it easier for them to do. And so, in terms of, I don't know what next step is, I understand, as the Fiona has mentioned, that they recommend approval for this planning permission application, but I'm just worried about how this will impact the children and their health.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Now, I think the applicant is also represented, presumably your agents for the applicant here. So please, in similar fashion, when you're ready, you've also got, slightly over 3 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Hello, and thanks for the opportunity to speak this evening. 17 Addison Crescent was purchased fairly recently by a client who is a long-term resident of the borough and wishes to sympathetically renovate, refurbish and extend the property, preserving the historic elements and creating a more functional home for their family. They are a long-time resident of the borough and they do intend to make this their family home. We engaged with the local authority with a pre-app and responded to the feedback in developing the scheme and submitting the previous applications. Following receipt of comment from the officers, we withdrew the application, modified the proposals and put them back in to ensure submission of a compliant scheme. The proposals before you are policy compliant in all regards, and documents supporting this have been submitted as part of the application. The planning officers noted that the proposals would preserve the special architectural and historic interest and heritage significance of the listed building and would preserve the character and appearance of the conservation area. So it's been noted that 17 Addison Road is a Grade 2 listed building. It's been heavily altered, and the modern extension to the south is deemed to have a harmful impact on the character and appearance of the listed building. Excuse me. The proposals seek to remove out-of-keeping modern elements and reinstate the features of the features in the original house. The extension is proposed to be rebuilt with a more sympathetic design and improved internal spaces. Moreover, it reinstates symmetry across the pairing with number 16 and a degree of subservience to the side wing. The new side wing is not considered to increase the sense of enclosure to neighbouring properties, and daylight and sunlight reports demonstrate that neighbouring property occupiers would not experience a material loss in daylight and sunlight. As noted, a basement's also proposed, which is policy compliant in all regards. It's below the rebuilt extensions and front and rear gardens. It's single storey, provides 1 metre of topsoil, extends less than 50% below the garden areas, and the external manifestations are discrete and minimal. It's been assessed that no harm will be caused to the historic building with a Berlin scale impact of 1. The sustainability of the proposals has also been carefully considered. The existing building and extension perform poorly and require significant amounts of energy to heat and provide hot water. The updated and partially rebuilt home will be more energy efficient, combining high levels of insulation, double glazing, and intelligent controls. The reconstruction of the side extension is actually assessed to have a positive impact on the sustainability of the construction methodology, because partially retaining this would add a considerable amount of time to the programme and result in significant waste arising from temporary works such as steelwork, footings, sacrificial piles. Our client is committed to building a high quality home which makes a positive contribution to the conservation area and preserves the historic building for years to come. They're keen to maintain neighbourly relations and will limit the impacts of the construction process by carefully adhering to RBKC's policies and requirements. RBKC's specialist departments have scrutinised the information submitted and deemed it compliant, and the proposed conditions further minimise the impact of the construction process on nearby residents. In all regards, we've demonstrated compliance with policy and therefore hope that you're in agreement with the recommendations of your officers and will approve this application tonight. And thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, questions for either party? Sam, do you want to go first?
Yes, picking up on a couple of the points made by the objector, so question to the applicant. What would be the build time? Would it be longer or shorter if you were constructing the lower ground extension underneath the existing building instead of demolishing it and building again? Very briefly, I'm not asking for a huge timescale, but just if you know that. And secondly, in energy efficiency terms, do you have any data just to tell us how much more efficient the new building will be than retrofitting the existing area?
In terms of timescale, roughly it's considered to be around about 12 weeks in terms of supporting, say, the existing front facade or demolishing and being able to pile freely. In terms of energy efficiency, I don't have data to share with you, unfortunately. This is through conversations with our sustainability consultant and information that they've worked on for us on other projects.
Thank you, Chair. To the applicant, Ms. Kenneth, on behalf of my resident, obviously I did speak to her. You can hear from her speech, she doesn't object the actual basement demolition, but it's about the sustainability environment. What sort of measures would you take, or would you describe in protecting your neighbors, whether it's the dust coming through or noise, for example? I understand you might have submitted CTMP. I'm not sure. Well, I'll ask the officers about that one. But what sort of measures could you assure your neighbor and my resident on the environment part, so it's safer for the children, safer for living? Thank you.
Through the appointment of the professional team, the construction methodology will be carefully planned to put in place mitigation against dust and noise. So we've got things like careful screening, dampening down, making sure that's done regularly to reduce the amounts of dust going into the atmosphere, washing of tyres, skips and conveyors carrying any sort of rubble to be carefully screened. Basically, a lot of the things that RBKC do require as well to ensure that residents are protected from the impacts of construction.
Would you be happy to work with the neighbour, getting some recommendations or advice on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Hello, two brief questions, one to the objector, if I may, and one to the applicant's agent. To the objector, I'm just looking at your objection here and the 4 points that you mention. One is understanding inconvenience to neighbour, which would be with any application like this. You put impact on the main road. Could you just clarify what the worry is that? Is that for the CTMP, or is that actual damage to the road? If you could just explain that one.
So thank you for your question. So the point around there is that last year, if I remember correctly, the main part of Addison Road was repaved, and so I was just, there was just concern around, having more heavy vehicles coming in on the road that will damage the good work. Again, on the sustainability point, we just had the road repaved, and so it's just going to be more vibration and perhaps worsening conditions for the road after.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now to the agent, if I could ask just two brief questions. One is, do you have an estimate how much longer it would take to build if you retain the original structure, as the objector is saying, how much extra time it would put on the build time? And my second question, you mentioned that the end result will add to the conservation area. Can you just clarify which particular features you think to the new part are going to add to that, like restoration of what would have been original features, Brent?
Thank you. So to the first point about the retention or demolition of the side extension, I think I'd mentioned with the proposals for the side extension, if the front facade were to be partially retained, it would add probably around 12 weeks to the programme. And then in terms of the positive impact of the scheme, the rear elevation at the moment is considered overly grand, and it dominates the original historic part of the listed building. Also, the symmetry with number 16, the buildings are considered as a pair in terms of the listing, and that symmetry isn't there at the moment. So the new rear facade will reinstate that symmetry. It respects the building line of number 16, and it appears more lightweight with projecting bays, and the overly grand curved nature of the existing is removed. There's also some improvements to the front. The garage door configuration is improved, and generally throughout the original building, as part of the application, which is considered as a whole, there's a raft of measures in terms of reinstating cornicing, putting back into place the original plan form at lower ground floor and second floor, reinstating fireplaces, original doors, and really respecting the history of the grade 2 element and trying to protect that for the future.
Okay, in that case, thank you very much indeed, all of you who've spoken. So, colleagues, our turn to ask officers questions. Anyone like to go first? Tim, you go first.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very quick question, because one of the comments mentioned that given the scale of the development, it would not be reasonable to request a sustainability statement. Just out of curiosity, under what circumstances do we get a sustainability statement, just to refresh our minds?
So the different type of applications we receive are major, minor, householder and other, generally speaking. And it's for major planning applications that we would require a sustainability statement. That's for applications of 10 or more units or over 1,000 square metres of new floor space created. So this application would fall into a householder category and unfortunately wouldn't require a sustainability statement. So we assess it more generally against policy CE2, which talks about sustainability, but there's no requirement for any particular statement to be submitted.
Yeah, no. Do you want to say?
Thank you, Chair. Just on the CTMP part, has that been, I understand I can see the CTMP, has that been completely approved and there's no requirement of additional CTMP?
So we received a draft CTMP with the application to show that it can be constructed safely and with appropriate vehicles and routing and so on. But we've actually added condition 4 to the planning permission, not the listed building consent, and that's to get us a final CTMP because the planning permission has a time limit of 3 years. It could be that they implement the permission in 2 years' time, and at that time there could be other things happening in the area, changes could have happened. So it's so that we've got a up-to-date document at the time which they implement. That's why that condition is still on there and still pre-commencement, and that's hopefully going to successfully manage the traffic impact as much as we can.
Just a couple of points to follow up on the objectors. As part of the CPMT, you're quite confident that there's going to be no damage from the type of vehicle that will be used, the carriageway that's just been resurfaced?
I don't think we can guarantee it. It depends, how heavy the goods vehicles are and so on will be a consideration for our transport team, and obviously it's in their interest to protect the carriageway, but wear and tear associated, I don't think we could control as part of this condition. So any planning conditions we attach has to be relevant to the permission that's being granted. It's forms one of the tests. So it'd be tricky to insist on, specific damage to the carriageway, but our highways team will be the ones assessing that, and obviously we'll have knowledge of that work.
Thank you. Just one other point. We've heard that the new build will enhance the conservation area, improving some of the features of the building. Do you obviously concur with that, with the features changed to the more modest outlook that it is at the moment?
Yes, yeah. So we've consulted our conservation team as part of this, and they've assessed it as well. So in terms of the significance of the building, they think it's an improvement and an enhancement because of the way the existing treatment is. So overall, it's kind of refined the design, let's say. I think we'd probably rather there was no extension there on that listed building, but we can see that there is one there and give it due weight.
Thank you. Any other points? No. In that case, I think it's our turn to make a decision about this. I think to my mind, this is a very substantial property, given that in planning terms it's not a major application, but it's obviously an enormous property, which is also a listed building. I think my own feeling is that probably the various conditions do cover the points that have been raised by objectors insofar as they are within the scope of the planning system. That would be my own feeling. But would anyone like to say anything to the contrary, or does that seem a reasonable approach? Okay, well in that case, I think we can propose to make a decision. First of all, we have the planning application. The recommendation is to grant with the conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? Those against? Councillor Oretti is going to abstain. Okay. And we also, of course, have a listed building consent. So the recommendation is to grant listed building consent. Can I see those in favour of that recommendation, please? So that's unanimous. So that's agreed. Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you for coming. If we can now turn to the application in Russell Gardens Mews, and I think Fiona, you're once again going to, not for the first time, well, the second time, going to present that. So please, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There are no speakers this evening for this case, so we haven't prepared a presentation, but would draw members' attention to the addendum report, because importantly, this property is not in a conservation area, and there's an update to one of the informatives. So all the drawings are in your report pack, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you, Chairman.
Very good. Now, there are no speakers for this case. Does anyone have any questions? Arian?
As the owner is a good friend, is a neighbour. Just on the point, obviously, this property had a previous permission before that transpired or expired. What if, I understand it probably comes down to the budget based on my conversations. If in case, if this transpires, if we, obviously it's been approved, we'll take a vote. There's no limit to where we could sort of, put a restriction on saying any expiry would have any consequences, I believe, or that's not in the planning consideration.
I see what you mean. It's sort of, you've got permission, let's get on with it, and not keep getting permissions over and over again. But unfortunately, there's no way to do that. Each one has to be considered afresh on its merits, and then we have due weight given to any previous permissions. I think there is obviously a risk when our new local plan comes in or policy changes. Things are ever evolving, so there may become a point that this becomes unacceptable. But as assessed now, it is we've concluded is acceptable in terms of our development plan.
Very briefly, from the report, I'm thinking of the proposed development at the rear of the building, and if I've understood correctly, some of the things are actually would be permitted development. So on that basis, it would be quite difficult for us to really say they're unacceptable, even though they are. I mean, I can understand, because there are some objectors who actually they are quite, they are quite near to the rear of the building. But is that right? Have I understood that correctly?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So the general permitted development order allows people to do certain works to their home without planning permission, including inserting windows, sometimes extensions like the roof level extensions we've noted in the report. If planning permission were to be refused for this, it's highly likely we could take receipt of a certificate of lawful development application, and then we'd be asked to confirm that there's no planning permission required. So they would effectively be able to do it anyway. So it is difficult, and we must give due weight to that fallback position, which is very real.
Thank you. Any other questions? No. In that case, I think we can move to make a decision. So the recommendation is to grant planning permission with the conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour, please? So that is agreed. Thank you. Can we now turn to the application at the Cromwell Hospital in the Cromwell Road?
So this application is for various plants, again as shown on the drawings within your pack. There are stringent noise conditions that officers have recommended to safeguard neighbours against any potential noise disturbance. But subject to those conditions, officers are recommending approval, and again, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions about this? Tim.
Just very quickly, I understand that that particular roof already has quite a lot of equipment on there. Did I also understand correctly that any of the equipment that is no longer going to be used would be removed, so basically a big clean-up before any new equipment is being installed?
Yes, the proposal does seek to remove some of the plants. I have to say it's not going to be completely cleared because the new one would still have some visual impact, but very, very limited to private views. And it is at the back of that hospital very much reading as like a service area for that hospital. So I don't think we'll ever have a kind of very attractive rear facade here because of the function and nature of that use. So on balance, officers are comfortable that that necessary plant is acceptable in visual terms.
And do we know if some of the equipment that is being removed is some of the more noisy equipment? Do we know that?
I don't think we had anything in the submission to confirm, but to be honest, irrespective of that, any new plant that goes in has such stringent criteria for the noise. If residents can hear it, or there is any kind of change to the background noise level, they can call our planning enforcement team and we can investigate that. And those conditions give us, power to enforce, hopefully, quite quickly.
Perfect, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chair. On top of Councillor Verboven's question, if we have to add a condition to have an enclosure, or we approve this and in the future if there's a noise issue, would an enclosure, to install an enclosure, would there be a necessary planning application required, or?
Yes, it would. So this application has submitted a noise report that demonstrates that they can meet our criteria for noise, so that it would be below the background noise level and therefore not audible. If for any reason that couldn't be met, an acoustic enclosure may well overcome that, but they'd still need to apply for permission for it because it would be a new structure that we haven't considered as part of this application. So, to control its size and visual appearance, that would be important. But we would weigh against any benefits it has with regard to noise reduction. But based on what they've submitted, they don't need it to make sure it's not audible. So we're confident the conditions can control that.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. So in other words, what would happen is that if there were complaints and we were satisfied that some of the equipment did seem to be too noisy, then we could in effect say, we would in effect be saying to them, you need to put in a new application which would have some kind of enclosure for the equipment to reduce the noise. That's the way in which it would work. Would that be right?
If it was noisy, I actually think we would just come and say, turn it off. Turn off this plant.
Okay.
And then they may then come in with an application with an acoustic enclosure to resolve the breach and therefore be able to operate it. But I would hope it wouldn't come to that. And they've demonstrated with the supporting information that it can be silent in terms of it's benchmarked against the background noise.
No, I think that's reasonable. And I think, colleagues, I think we all understand that clearly a hospital is an unusual type of building that clearly requires equipment that is not ordinary for a residential building or that kind of thing. So it's important to have a sense of perspective about these things. Any other questions to officers or points? No. Okay, in that case, the recommendation is to grant planning permission with the conditions attached in the report. Can I see those in favour of the recommendation, please? So that is agreed. Thank you very much. Yes. So we will now move to consider the application at Elverston Place. And Councillor Mackover, as he said earlier, actually is a near neighbour of the site. So he's going to step aside for this item. But Fiona, would you like to present this, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So this application for the air source heat pumps on the rooftop, you'll see from the plans in your pack, it has been discreetly located. And again, actually in similar vein to the previous application, we've got three noise conditions suggested. For this one, there is an acoustic enclosure proposed already, so I would assume they've got a more challenging site circumstance and the proximity to their neighbours and background noise levels. So there is an acoustic enclosure proposed, and subject to those conditions, officers are satisfied it would both preserve the conservation area and living conditions in terms of noise. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about this? No, I think these are these are quite substantial buildings, aren't they? So it's possible for equipment to be sort of be on an elevated level without it being incredibly prominent or obtrusive because of the general scale of the building. So do you think, is that fair, do you think, in terms of the way this might work?
Definitely, and just in terms of its position, sort of tucked in the corner and low scale, I think it would be very, very difficult to see, even in private views. Yeah, so we're happy it preserves the conservation area.
That's good. Any questions, colleagues, about this? No. Okay, well, in that case, the recommendation is to grant with the conditions attached in the report. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? So that is agreed. Thank you. So if we can now return to the North Pack, and I think we're going to consider 186 Portobello Road.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. There's one edit in the addendum to draw your attention to, but this application is for it's the building on the corner, and you would see from the drawings that they've got an existing extract and plant on the kind of flat roof area to the side, and that's going to be replaced. It's all very much set back in kind of a recessed area, which although it's got slightly bigger, we're satisfied that it again preserves the conservation area, has an acceptable visual impact. There's been some concerns raised by neighbours about the access of that flat roof, but at the moment that is unrestricted, so it wouldn't be possible to add any conditions. That's what officers have concluded, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions? Lloyd?
So just to, looking at the objections here and the statement, are we correct in assuming that the new equipment will be to a higher standard and therefore will be an improvement on what's there?
I would definitely assume that they're upgrading their existing equipment, and the equipment these days on the market is less noisy and more effective, and I think that's what's driving this application.
Very good. Any other questions? No. Okay. In that case, the recommendation is to grant planning permission with the conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour of the recommendation, please? So that is agreed. Thank you. if we can now turn to 310 Portobello Road.
Thank you, Chairman. This application originally had a proposal for sort of glass fixed canopies around the building to replace their fabric ones, and that was a concern for both us and neighbours near to the site that wrote into us. So those elements were removed from the permission and the application, and we got revised drawings to show that. So now the application is solely to make changes to the door, again seen on the drawings in your pack. So existing opening, existing door to be replaced with a new one that's slightly higher. Officers are satisfied that we have very little impact at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions relating to this? No, I think the point here is that I think the application has actually been amended as we've gone along to take account of the objections that people have made and the kind of slightly what might be considered a slightly out of character sort of glass canopy and things in the area has actually been omitted now from the final plans, which I think is helpful and makes a lot of sense. Any other comments or points, colleagues? No. Okay. Well, in that case, the recommendation is that the application is granted. The conditions set out in the report. Can I see those in favour, please? So that is agreed. Thank you. If we can now move to the applications in Pembridge Crescent, I think 18 and 21, isn't it?
Yes.
Pembridge Crescent.
Thank you, Chairman. These ones are before you this evening because the Royal Borough is the applicant, and it's for the replacement of windows. So like for like in terms of design and treatment, but they would be double glazed using a slimline design, and officers are recommending approval. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Arian?
Sorry, not a question, but Fiona, do you have any visuals or samples of that drawing?
We don't have samples actually, but within the report pack of the drawings, so we've got a condition that requires the compliance with the approved drawings. So you'll see in that pack, I believe there's sections and also the different types broken down window by window that it shows that it's replaced like for like the typical and existing and using those slimline profiles. So there will be a slight increase in the thickness, but if you look on the section, it can comfortably be taken and still read as kind of an acceptable replacement, again still using timber.
It's fine.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's the key point, isn't it? That the replacement windows need to not materially alter the kind of look of a building in even if it's it may or may not be a conservation area, but just generally, I think that is an important consideration, isn't it? Colleagues, any other questions? Lloyd.
It's not really a question, actually. I'd just like to make note that this is in a conservation area, and it does show how we are improving our stock with quality windows, and the fact that the council have gone to 45 people notified of this and not one objection, I think speaks for it. So thank you.
Well, I think Councillor North makes a good point. I mean, we do. I think as a borough, we go to enormous lengths to actually inform residents about applications, and I suspect we go to greater lengths and probably spend more money than, from a statutory point of view, that we probably might, get away with. But that's really an observation on the part of Councillor North and myself, I suspect.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Fiona, if you want to.
I was just going to, we do have our statement of community involvement that goes kind of above and beyond with regard to planning consultations.
I think that's understood. Are there any other comments or on this? No. Okay. Well, in that case, the recommendation is that we that we grant with the conditions attached. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? So that's agreed. Thank you. And finally, if we can turn to the application in McGregor Road in North Kensington. So, Fiona.
Yeah, just to confirm the addendum report again, the property is within the Colville Conservation Area. And again, it's before you this evening because it's a RBKC application and it's for the replacement windows, again, utilising timber and those slim profile double glazed units to upgrade the building. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any questions on this? No. Okay. Well, in that case, the recommendation is to grant. Can I see those in favour of granting, please? So that is agreed. Very good. Thank you very much. I don't think there's any other business before the committee, so I'm pleased to say that concludes our business for the evening. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. Thank you.